Oh boy. These may be my last words as a committee member and during a committee hearing. And I just want to start by saying thank you, Mr. Chairman, for putting up with me for all these years. And your friendship means more to me than our professional one and our professional relationship. And thank you for that. I've made some great friends in my time in office as I head out as a self-term limited legislator. I'm in a unique position in that I'm the only Republican in the entire General Assembly and the House or the Senate that voted against HB 316, the bill that brought the ultimately the Dominion voting machines to Georgia. Now, I'm also the guy who started this debate when I started working on bringing paper ballots back to Georgia 6 years ago and dropped the first bill 5 years ago to that effort, and was happy to see that we were moving to paper ballots. I'll remind the committee how hard I fought for the risk limiting audit and that there were many interests aligned to fight the existence of the risk limiting audit in Georgia. And now it's become so important that we do that. And the whole vision behind all of that was to create a voting system that was 100% verifiable from beginning to end. And it's important that we verify every aspect of it so that we can identify areas for improvement. Those may be regulation or rules changes, but they could also be legislative changes. But we have to check. We have to check everything. And to this point, we haven't. And that's what's disappointing to me. And I'm most disappointed, frankly. And I have friends, dear friends, some I call brother, who work in the Secretary of State's office. And for them to go and have a press conference today and spend 40 minutes in front of television cameras and not come answer our questions today is completely unacceptable to me, not as a state rep or a member of this committee, but as a Georgian. I am beside myself that they would not bother to come talk to us. I think it shows a heightened amount of disrespect to this committee and this body, and it's not acceptable. To that end, over the Thanksgiving weekend, I authored a letter and had 20 plus, some members of this committee even signed a letter to the Secretary of State asking for a signature audit because it has to be checked. Now, state law requires us to keep that for 2 years, and it's implied that so that people can go back and look at those things. But the problem is that after certification, you're going to need a court order. So I won't be here to introduce that bill, but if I was coming back, I'd be dropping a bill on January 11th stating that we're opening that process up so that we can look at it. We didn't go through the RLA process and recount the ballots because of specific instances of fraud. It was to validate the system. We need to do that with the signature audits as well. And so I sit here in amazement as I watch the tables flip from my unique perspective as the only Republican who voted against the bill. Watching my friends who are Republicans saying, well, there's problems in the system now. These were things that I tried to bring up at the time. And watching my friends on the left who were saying there are going to be problems in the system now saying, oh, everything's okay. The truth is probably in the middle. And it has been really hard to hold that candle of truth in front of the tsunami of misinformation that has been brought from everywhere. And when we have hammer and scorecard accusations, as one person tried to testify today, all we're doing is feeding this conspiracy theory stuff, and it's making it really hard to focus on the areas that actually need to be improved. Of all the stuff that we heard today, there were two things that stood out for me personally. And that is, we had a data analyst come and bring findings that matched a different data analyst's findings. And these two gentlemen never knew the other was doing the work, but the numbers matched. And you need to dig in on that because that's 15,000 potential people who voted in this election that shouldn't have. And we should be honest enough with ourselves to look at this process. I've defended this process from the beginning, even though I voted against the bill, because I believe that it was intended to be 100% verifiable. And so when you have independent auditors who have taken it upon themselves to look at our data, voting rule cleanup must be a priority. That's not changing the rules, that's doing a job. Somebody needs to do that, and they need to start doing it right away. And secondly is the issue around the signature match audit. I think if it has to be addressed legislatively, it should. And I'm just going to, one more thing, Mr. Chairman, we talked about this last evening. It pains me to bring this up, but the changing nature of the information that we've been getting as legislators from the Secretary of State's office has been most disappointing. I'm going to hold up a hard copy of a memo that we all got as members of the legislature dated November 12th from the Secretary of State's office. It has his signature on it. On that day, he sent us a frequently asked questions memo. And in it, it said, did Fulton County count ballots without observation? He says, this particular issue remains under investigation. The Secretary of State's office had a state election monitor and a state post certified investigator who remained with Fulton County workers, even though some party appointed poll watchers may have left. Since both the observer and the investigator remained with the Fulton County workers, scanning was observed by the Secretary of State's office at all times. And it's in bold letters. I'm going to read that again. Since both observer and investigator remained with Fulton County workers, scanning was observed by the Secretary of State's office at all times, in bold letters. That same exact language appears on a second memo from the Secretary of State's office on November 19th, which will be in your email if you kept it. Then the video comes, and there's no observer in the video. Now, I have some other issues with the video that shows at State Farm Arena where the observers were out of the room and the ballot counting resumed. I don't think that is as inflammatory as people have seen it to be, but this is my problem with it. There was nobody from the Secretary of State in that video when they restarted counting. And we were told twice, and I repeated this in public multiple times because I believe the Secretary of State's office when they told us that there was an investigator and an observer from the office at all times, because I had gotten it twice from their office. The video comes out, he's not there. They send another email to the legislature on December 4th, debunking the claims in the video from the Senate testimony. At the very last paragraph, this is what it reads. There was about an hour that workers scanned ballots before a state monitor arrived, but video shows those moments. They changed the story without even acknowledging that they changed the story. And that damages credibility. We have to be better than that. We have to be better than that. When I saw that, I was like, that doesn't add up. And it doesn't make sense. So I started doing some even more research, and I found this factcheck.org statement that the headline is video doesn't show suitcases of illegal ballots in Georgia, which, by the way, the word suitcases is an inflammatory term. It's very obvious for any a casual observer that those are ballot boxes that look just like every other ballot box in Georgia. But that being said, what was most disappointing to me was this part of the statement. In a statement to PolitiFact or to factcheck.org, the Secretary of State's office, quote, we have launched an investigation into why monitors from political parties left before scanning ended. The Secretary of State's office said in the statement, while it was their right to leave early, we want to make sure they were not misled into thinking scanning had stopped for the night when it had not. Nothing we have learned from the independent monitor or our investigation have suggested any improper ballots were scanned. The monitor, who agreed to be interviewed on the condition of not being named due to death threats faced by election workers, told us he was in the room from about 8:15 p.m. and when he left and returned at 11:52. It doesn't take a whole lot of math to realize that's a lot longer than 1 hour. And then, this is the best part, the Deputy Secretary of State told factcheck.org that the monitor was not required to be there at all times, but she instructed him to return after hearing the news outlets that the county was going to cease counting for the night. This means that the Deputy Secretary of State knew the entire time that there was not an observer in the room when ballot scanning was happening, and they sent 2 memos to us saying that there was. The story doesn't add up. Somebody isn't telling the truth. And it's not acceptable, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry I won't be here to help you clean up this mess, but there it is.
Thank you, Representative Turner. do want to thank everybody for their service to this committee. Thank you for your patience. And this was a very long day. And obviously, elections can be very intense regarding their discussion. But the people I've talked to, and friends of mine and others, they know that the person they want to win is not always going to win. They just want to know the person that does win the election is the one who got the most legally and legitimately cast votes. So let's continue to work towards that end. Thank you again, all of you. Again, this is our first meeting of this particular investigation, not our last. Have a good evening. God bless.